Okay, so welcome to everyone, wherever you are, whoever you are. My session today is memory techniques in the language classroom, and my challenge to you is: could you be integrating memory techniques more often into your classes, whether with juniors or with adults? So I'd like to start with a quick activity, if I can, and ask you to do something. So before we start, I'd like you to clear your mind. I'd like you to take a deep breath. Relax. It's Friday after all. Okay, I'm going to show you 3 language items from a student's book. 3 language items, and I want you to try to memorize them using the following technique. Are you ready? I would like you to visualize your journey to work. Can you visualize your journey to work? What can you see, hear? What can you smell? So when I show you the items of language in a second, I want you to place these items in 3 different places on your journey to work. So for example, I might put one item on the top of a bus stop, or one item sitting on the branch of a tree, somewhere on your journey. Okay? So I'll give you 30 seconds to do this, and this is starting now. So imagine your journey, start placing these items in 3 different physical places on your journey to work. If you want to type one of the places that you put your items, feel free to do so in the chat box. Okay. All right. Some nice suggestions coming in there. Backseat of my car, in a shop window. Excellent. Okay. Now I'll come back to those later on and see how you do with that memory technique to see if you remember those. Excellent. Lots of ideas coming in. So this is a memory technique called find a place, and was first used thousands of years ago by the Greeks. So memory is important in the language classroom, or memory is important full stop, but it's nothing new. But it is crucial to language learning. As somebody who has written a book on language memory activities in the language classroom, Nick Bilborough, has mentioned. And he puts it as strongly as this. Have a look. So, this is a nice quote from his book, Memory Activities for Language Learning, one of the few books that I know of that addresses memory in the classroom. But memory underpins every aspect of successful language learning. Okay, well, so why is there so little research? Seems strange. Any ideas? Just have a think for a minute, a few seconds. Why is there so little research? Well, Melanie Williams, who reviewed his book for the ELTJ, has suggested 2 reasons. Okay, here they are. Have a look. Which do you think seems most important? Yes, okay, some good ideas coming in there. All right, well, I think those quotes are really good. One is methodology, the first one, and the second one is to do with the real world. Yes, good quotes coming in there. But I think they're both important. But I think it's safe to say that most teacher training courses have little focus or no focus on this area, but because of the lack of research. So it's not surprising that many teachers neglect to address this area in their classes? Well, hopefully we can raise some more interest in this and maybe perhaps make it part of a regular part of your teaching, if it's not already. Here are some classic techniques which you could use and integrate into your classes. Let's have a quick look. Here they come. Okay, so the first one is mnemonics, pronunciation mnemonics. And these are a memory link, a memory technique, which can be verbally or visually focused. Or both. I mean, it's even better if it's both because there are more links going on. So for example, the word occasion. How many C's, how many S's? Well, I can tell you that it's double C and one S. Now, why do I know that? Well, I used to get it wrong, but I thought of a technique to remember. My technique is simple. I think of a special occasion. Special occasion has lots of champagne. Lots of champagne. Champagne begins with letter C, two C's an occasion, and one S. Okay, that works for me. I can remember it forever. I will never get it wrong. So that's what mnemonics is about, sharing ideas and allowing students to think of their own techniques as well. Okay, keyword memory technique, what uses links to L1. So when I was learning Spanish, the noun gato, I think that's right, guys, G-A-T-O means cat. Well, that's quite an easy one because G-A-T is very similar to C-A-T in the sound and the letters, but there's a link to the L1. Okay, creating a story. Okay, someone in a previous presentation mentioned stories, and this is really a powerful way to remember. For example, students have 10 items of language from their lesson from the week, and you say, okay, choose 10 items that are important for you. Now, make a story with them in the order that you've written them down. But maybe include a famous person, and choose a student from your class as well in the story. Maybe they can do this mentally or in writing. But they should make it crazy, the crazier, the more vivid, the more dynamic, the better. It will make a stronger memory. So you should encourage this actively. Maybe the students can vote on the best story, the funniest, the best, the strangest, if they hear each other's. 2 days later, why not see if they can remember their stories without their notes and the vocabulary that they used? Very often they can. So stories, really powerful. Finding a place, we've already done this at the beginning of the session, very powerful. Repetition, really important. Have a review slot in every lesson, perhaps. Research suggests that we need to meet a language item 16 times, 16 times before it becomes fixed in our long-term memory. But we also need to reuse the language in writing and speaking especially. So this is called productive retrieval. Meaningful ways, not just remembering for the sake of remembering. Physicality is important, very strong link for memory. So for example, if you're drilling some phrases, what's the emotion, what's the gestures that would go with the phrases? Make some physical associations with that. Maybe you could the next day ask the students, remember when I did this gesture? What was the phrase that I taught you? See if they can remember. Exploiting, being aware of affective factors. Well, this is emotion. Bring emotion into your classes, into the language, into the drilling, into the role play. Emotion is a very, very strong link. But also bear in mind their affective factors. Are they hungry? Are they tired? Are they unhappy? This will affect their memory. So lots to bear in mind. The last main thing to point out, guys, is that you can use memory techniques. That's great, and I would encourage that. But you should also make sure your lessons are memorable and your materials are memorable. There has been some research into this, and some educational psychologists have come up with an acronym to help you remember what's most important. They said that it's all to do with success. Making your lesson materials more memorable. Okay. These things, they say, are crucial. So, simplicity, unexpectedness, concreteness, refers to things the students can relate to, not too abstract. Credibility, Not too unbelievable, not too bizarre. Students will lose interest. Emotion, we've already talked about. Stories, we talked about. So that's a nice acronym to help you remember. And of course, an acronym is in itself a memory technique. So my challenge to you is have an explicit focus in your classes on memory techniques. But you need to make time and space for this, little and often. Encourage experimentation, reflection, feedback on these techniques. Number 3, raise awareness of the variety of techniques students can use. I think this is really important. But let the students choose what works best for them, because everyone's different. So allow them to explore and find what works. And ask your learners regularly, how will you remember these items? Not just learn them, but learn them, and how will you remember them? And explore that answer with them. Okay. So what else would you do to remember to include memory techniques in the language classroom? Well, you could ask your DOS to buy the resource book I mentioned at the beginning of this talk. It's listed at the end of these slides. The source is there. Memory activities in the language classroom. Read the introduction. Try out the activities. There's a self-reflection document that goes with this session, which you should be able to print out from the website. There's some memory facts about research. What are the implications for your classes? Print it out. Try it. Do it as a development session. Okay, but hang on a minute before I finish, just before I finish. Who can remember the 3 items of language from the start of the presentation? I wonder. Can you remember the 3 items of language? Give you 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. And the items were compliment someone, on the edge of, a missed opportunity. Okay, so we had some success. Maybe that technique doesn't work for you, but maybe it works for some people. Okay. All right. And why the spider at the beginning? No reason, actually. Just to get your attention. A visual is very powerful. A little bit of fear, perhaps. And fear is a strong connector for memory. But it's not real fear, it's just a picture, so that's okay. And maybe you will remember this presentation because of the spider.
Very much, Pete. That was fantastic. We've had hedgehogs,